Welcome to Animal Uncovered, the podcast where we explore the most unbelievable life cycles in the natural world. From the moment life begins to the moment it ends, nothing is as simple as it seems. In the pre-dawn darkness of an eastern Australian stream, something extraordinary is about to happen. The water, tea-coloured from tannins leaching from the surrounding eucalyptus, moves sluggishly between muddy banks. Beneath an overhanging root system hidden from the world above, a chamber the size of a rugby ball contains a secret that would have seemed impossible to the European scientists who first encountered evidence of this creature. Inside this carefully constructed burrow, barely larger than a human fist, two leathery eggs, each no bigger than a grape, are beginning to crack. The mother, having left her nursery chamber to feed, is absent. This is not neglect. This is precision. For the past 10 days she has maintained the perfect temperature and humidity through the heat of her own body, pressed against the eggs in a space so confined she could barely turn around. But now, driven by a hunger she can no longer ignore, she has slipped into the current to hunt. The infant inside the first egg has grown restless. It possesses a temporary tool, a small sharp egg tooth protruding from its snout, a disposable key designed for a single lock. With muscular contractions rippling along its half-inch body, the hatchling pushes, scrapes and tears at the parchment-like shell. The work is exhausting. For a creature that weighs less than 4 grams, emerging from an egg is an act of profound determination. When the shell finally gives way, what emerges looks nothing like the iconic creature we recognize. Blind, hairless, utterly helpless, it resembles a pink comma more than anything mammalian. And yet, within this vulnerable scrap of life lies one of nature's most audacious evolutionary experiments, a mammal that lays eggs, yet nurses its young. A creature with fur like an otter, a bill like a duck, venomous spurs like a reptile, and the ability to sense the electric fields generated by the muscle contractions of its prey. The platypus defies category, it contradicts assumption, and its life cycle is far stranger than almost anyone realizes. Part 1. The Impossible Animal. When the first platypus specimen arrived in England in 1798, a dried skin complete with bill and tail, the naturalists at the British Museum were convinced it was a hoax. Someone, they reasoned, had surely sewn a duck's bill onto the pelt of some unfortunate Australian mammal. George Shaw, the keeper of natural history at the museum, took scissors to the specimen, searching for stitches. He found none, but his scepticism persisted. In his official description, published in 1799, Shaw admitted the creature was impossible not to entertain some doubts about. Their disbelief was understandable. The platypus violated every rule by which mammals were understood. It had a bill. It laid eggs. The males possessed venomous spurs. It had no stomach. Food travelled from esophagus directly to intestine. It was, in the words of one bewildered anatomist, a living fossil that seemed to belong more to the age of dinosaurs than to the modern world. But the platypus is neither fossil nor fraud. It is a masterpiece of evolutionary persistence, a lineage that stretches back more than 100 million years. A mammal that emerged when dinosaurs still walked the earth and has survived, largely unchanged, into our present age. Today, we know the platypus as an icon of Australian wildlife, a symbol of nature's creativity, featured on coins and conservation posters. But how many people understand what it actually means to be a platypus? How this creature navigates the world through senses we can barely imagine, how it raises its young in flooded darkness, how it hunts in murky streams where vision is useless and sound is swallowed by sediment. The central question of this episode is deceptively simple. How does something so improbable not merely survive but thrive? To answer that, we must journey through the platypus life cycle, from egg to adult, from hatchling to breeding season, and discover that every stage of this creature's existence is calibrated to an environment and an evolutionary strategy unlike anything else on Earth. Part 2: Evolution and Origins. To understand the platypus, we must first step backward in time, not centuries but eons, not to the Australia of eucalyptus forests and kangaroos, but to the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana, when what would become Australia was still joined to Antarctica and South America. The platypus belongs to an order of mammals called Monotremes, the only mammals that lay eggs. Today, only 5 species of monotreme survive, the platypus and 4 species of echidna. But the fossil record tells us that monotremes were once far more diverse, with species ranging from tiny insectivores to creatures the size of dogs. The oldest platypus fossils we've discovered date back approximately 61 million years to the Paleocene epoch, just after the extinction event that eliminated non-avian dinosaurs. These ancient platypuses were larger than their modern descendants, some reaching nearly a metre in length. They possessed functional teeth as adults, unlike modern platypuses which lose their teeth early in life, replacing them with grinding plates of hardened keratin. But the monotreme lineage itself reaches back much further. Genetic studies suggest that monotremes diverged from the other mammalian lineages, marsupials and placentals, somewhere between 166 and 191 million years ago, during the Jurassic period. This means that while dinosaurs were diversifying into the giants that would dominate the Mesozoic era, a small furred creature was laying eggs in a burrow somewhere in what would become the southern hemisphere. Why did monotremes retain egg-laying when other mammals evolved live birth? The answer likely lies in their environment and ecological niche. Early monotremes were probably semi-aquatic or burrowing animals, living in environments where carrying developing young internally offered no particular advantage. Eggs could be safely deposited in protected burrows, incubated by body heat, while the parent remained free to forage. The platypus bill, too, has an ancient pedigree. Fossil evidence shows that even the earliest known platypuses possessed this distinctive feature, though its shape has been refined over millions of years. The bill is not made of keratin like a bird's beak, but of soft, leathery skin stretched over delicate bones. It is one of the most sophisticated sensory organs in the natural world. More on that shortly. As Australia gradually separated from Antarctica and drifted northward, becoming increasingly isolated, the platypus ancestors found themselves in an evolutionary experiment with no interference from outside. The land became drier, the forest changed, but rivers and streams remained, and the platypus, perfectly adapted to this aquatic niche, endured. Other monotremes evolved different strategies. The echidnas became terrestrial, developing long snouts for probing ant and termite nests. But the platypus remained committed to the water, refining its adaptations for a life spent hunting freshwater invertebrates in murky streams. What we see today, the compact streamlined body, the dense waterproof fur, the webbed feet, the electroreceptive bill, is the result of over 100 million years of evolutionary fine-tuning. The platypus is not a primitive mammal that forgot to evolve. It is a highly specialized predator, exquisitely adapted to its environment, carrying within its genes the deep history of mammalian evolution. Part 3: The Life Cycle. Stage 1: The Egg. Our story begins not with the egg itself, but with the breeding burrow. In late winter or early spring, typically August or September in the southern hemisphere, a female platypus begins construction. She selects a bank location carefully. Stable soil that won't collapse, above the flood line but close to water, hidden beneath roots or overhanging vegetation. Using her front feet and bill, she excavates a tunnel that may extend 6 to 10 meters into the bank, sometimes longer. The tunnel slopes upward, ensuring that even if the water levels rise, the nursery chamber at the end remains dry. Along this tunnel, she constructs plug chambers, sections where she packs wet vegetation to create barriers that help regulate temperature and humidity and keep predators at bay. The nursery chamber itself is approximately 30 centimeters in diameter, lined with damp vegetation, grasses, leaves, reeds, that she has collected while swimming, pressing them against her body with her tail. This bedding is crucial. It provides insulation and maintains the humidity necessary for successful incubation. Mating has occurred weeks earlier, in the water, a complex dance of pursuit and clasping that may last for hours. The female platypus has a remarkable reproductive system. She possesses 2 ovaries, but only the left one is functional, a trait shared with birds. After fertilization, the eggs develop within her body for approximately 28 days. When she's ready to lay, the female retreats to her nursery chamber and seals herself inside using the plug barriers. What happens next would perplex early naturalists for decades. She lays not in a nest of dry grass, but among damp vegetation, and deposits typically 2 eggs, occasionally 1, rarely 3. The eggs themselves are extraordinary. Unlike bird eggs with their hard calcium shells, platypus eggs are leathery, flexible, encased in a sticky substance that causes them to adhere to each other and to the mother's fur. They measure approximately 17 millimeters in diameter, small for the size of the mother, but containing a surprisingly large yolk. For the next 10 days, the mother rarely leaves. She curls her body around the eggs, maintaining a constant temperature of approximately 32 degrees Celsius. Her metabolic rate increases to generate heat. She does not have a brood patch, the featherless area birds develop for incubating eggs, but her dense fur and body heat are sufficient. During brief foraging trips, the chamber's insulation and the warmth retained in the damp vegetation keep the eggs viable. But these absences must be brief. Too long and the temperature drops, too often, and development is disrupted. Stage 2. Hatching and early infancy. When the hatchling finally breaks free from its egg, it enters a world of absolute darkness. The nursery chamber is sealed from light, humid, and warm. The puggle, the unofficial but widely used term for a baby platypus, is approximately 15 to 17 millimeters long and weighs between 3 and 5 grams. It is utterly helpless. Its eyes are sealed shut. Its ears are merely shallow depressions in the skin. It has no fur, just a thin translucent skin that reveals the dark organs beneath. Its limbs are paddle-like nubs, barely capable of movement, and yet it possesses an instinct that will save its life, the drive to find milk. Here is where the platypus performs another evolutionary peculiarity. The mother does not have nipples. Instead, she secretes milk through openings in her skin, through pores in 2 mammary patches on her abdomen. The milk oozes through the fur, pooling in grooves created by specialized muscles, and the puggle, guided by scent and warmth, nuzzles into these patches and suckles. Platypus milk is remarkably rich, far more so than cow's milk, with a higher fat and protein content necessary to fuel the rapid growth of the helpless infant. Recent research has also revealed that platypus milk contains unique antibacterial properties, proteins that help protect the vulnerable puggle from the bacteria that inevitably colonize the damp burrow environment. For the first few weeks, the puggle's existence consists entirely of feeding and sleeping, pressed against its mother's warm abdomen. Growth is rapid. By 3 weeks of age, fine fur begins to emerge. By 6 weeks, the eyes begin to open, though in the darkness of the burrow, vision remains largely useless. The mother must now balance the demands of her infant with her own need to feed. Lactation is energetically expensive, and she requires substantial nutrition to maintain milk production. Her foraging trips become longer, sometimes lasting several hours, but she always returns to nurse. By 10 to 11 weeks, the puggle has grown substantially, now perhaps 10 centimeters long, covered in a dense coat of soft fur. Its movements are stronger, more coordinated. It begins to explore the confines of the nursery chamber, though it ventures no further. The sealed plugs keep it safe but imprisoned in darkness. Stage 3. Weaning and independence. At approximately 4 months of age, something shifts. The puggle is now too large to comfortably share the chamber with its mother. It is fully furred, its eyes fully open, its limbs strong enough to swim. The mother begins to leave the burrow plugs open. The first exit from the burrow is a moment of transformation. The young platypus, having known nothing but darkness and the enclosed chamber, suddenly encounters water, current, light, filtered through trees, the sounds of the surface world. It is overwhelming and instinctive. Platypuses are natural swimmers, but skill requires practice. The juvenile dog paddles awkwardly at first, limbs churning, body bobbing. It dives, surfaces, dives again. The mother is often nearby during these early excursions, but she does not teach in any overt sense. The young platypus learns through trial, error, and instinct. Foraging, however, is more complex. The young platypus must learn to hunt in an environment where the primary senses, vision and hearing, are largely useless. When a platypus dives, it closes its eyes, seals its ears with specialized folds of skin, and navigates entirely by touch and electroreception. The bill contains approximately 40,000 electroreceptors, specialized nerve endings that detect the electrical fields generated by muscle contractions. Every time a shrimp twitches, a worm contracts, an insect larva moves, it generates a tiny electrical signal. The platypus, sweeping its bill back and forth across the stream bed, senses these signals and constructs a mental map of prey locations. But this skill requires calibration. The juvenile must learn to distinguish signals, to judge distance and direction, to coordinate the signal with the physical strike. Early hunts are often clumsy, wild lunges at nothing, or mouthfuls of mud and pebbles. By 5 to 6 months, the young platypus has been fully weaned. The mother departs, and the juvenile is left to fend for itself. Mortality during this period is significant. Some juveniles fail to master foraging and starve. Others fall victim to predators, water rats, pythons, large fish, raptors, that see the young platypus as vulnerable prey. Those that survive this critical period face another challenge: establishing a home range. Suitable stream habitat is limited, and adult platypuses are territorial, particularly males. A juvenile platypus may need to disperse considerable distances, sometimes several kilometers, to find unoccupied territory. Stage 4. Reaching maturity. Sexual maturity arrives at different times for males and females. Females typically reach breeding condition at 2 years of age, though some may not breed until their third year. Males mature slightly later, often not becoming competitive breeders until 3 or 4 years old. By this stage, the platypus has grown to full size. Females typically weigh between 700 grams and 1.6 kilograms, males slightly larger, up to 2.4 kilograms. Body length from nose to tail, tip ranges from approximately 30 to 45 centimeters for females, 39 to 50 centimeters for males. But size is not the only marker of maturity in males. During adolescence, the venomous spur on the hind ankle, present but dormant in both sexes from birth, begins to develop functional venom glands in males. The spur itself is made of keratin, shaped like a curved thorn approximately 15 millimeters long, connected to a venom gland in the thigh. The venom is a complex cocktail of proteins, primarily defensins, which cause excruciating pain in mammals. Unlike snake venom, which primarily affects the cardiovascular or nervous system, platypus venom seems designed purely to cause pain, a defensive and competitive weapon. A human stung by a platypus spur experiences immediate severe pain that can last for days or weeks, often resistant even to morphine. The venom glands swell during the breeding season, suggesting the primary function is male-male competition. Platypuses are generally solitary, but during breeding season, males become aggressive and confrontations can result in venomous strikes. Females, meanwhile, prepare for motherhood by excavating new breeding burrows or refurbishing burrows from previous years. A successful female may breed annually, though some skip years, particularly if environmental conditions are poor or if the previous season's rearing was particularly taxing. Stage 5. The breeding cycle. When breeding season arrives, late winter to early spring, the normally solitary platypuses become more active, more visible. Males patrol their territories more aggressively. Females become receptive to mating advances. Courtship in platypuses is an aquatic affair. The male approaches the female, often circling her repeatedly. If she is unreceptive, she may flee or respond aggressively. If receptive, a prolonged chase ensues, the male pursuing the female through the water, grasping her tail in his bill. Eventually, if the female permits, the male wraps his body around hers, they swim in tight circles, and mating occurs. The event may last up to an hour, the pair drifting, circling, the male maintaining his grasp. Afterward, they separate and the male takes no further role in reproduction or rearing. The female then faces the monumental task of pregnancy, nest construction, incubation, and lactation, a process that spans approximately 5 months from mating to weaning. It is a significant reproductive investment, and success depends on adequate food resources, safe burrow locations, and freedom from disturbance. Stage 6. Adulthood and longevity. Outside of breeding season, adult platypuses live largely solitary lives. They are crepuscular and nocturnal, most active during dawn, dusk, and throughout the night. During the day, they retreat to resting burrows, simpler, shorter burrows located along the bank used for sleeping and grooming. A platypus spends significant time foraging. Because they are warm-blooded but live in cold water, they have high metabolic demands. An adult platypus may consume the equivalent of its own body weight in food every 2 or 3 days, primarily freshwater invertebrates, insect larvae, freshwater shrimp, worms, small fish. Foraging dives typically last between 30 and 40 seconds, though they can exceed a minute. The platypus descends to the stream bed, sweeps its bill through sediment and among rocks, captures prey in its bill, and stores it in cheek pouches. When the pouches are full, it surfaces, floats on the surface, and grinds the prey between its horny grinding plates, while small pebbles, stored along with the food, help pulverize the hard exoskeletons. Life is energetically expensive, but for a successful adult it is sustainable. Predation threats decrease with size and experience. A healthy adult platypus has few natural predators, though large pythons, goannas, and introduced predators like foxes occasionally take individuals. The lifespan of a wild platypus is difficult to determine, but capture-mark-recapture studies suggest they can live well over a decade, possibly approaching 20 years in ideal conditions. In captivity, where predation, disease, and environmental hazards are controlled, platypuses have lived into their early 20s. But life in the wild is precarious. Droughts reduce stream flow and concentrate prey, sometimes leading to starvation. Floods destroy burrows and displace populations. Disease, parasites, and injury all take their toll. Many platypuses do not survive to old age. Stage 7. Death and legacy. When death comes, it is often quiet and unobserved. A platypus weakened by age or injury may simply fail to emerge from its burrow. A sick individual may be taken by a predator it would normally evade. Bodies are rarely found. They decompose quickly in the aquatic environment, consumed by scavengers, recycled into the ecosystem. But the platypus's contribution to its environment extends beyond its own life. As a predator of invertebrates, it helps control populations and maintain ecological balance. Its burrows, once abandoned, become shelters for other species, fish, turtles, even other platypuses. Its presence indicates a healthy stream system, clean water, abundant invertebrate life. And in the genes of its offspring, if it's successfully bred, the platypus achieves a form of immortality, the continuation of a lineage that has persisted for over 100 million years, adapting, enduring, surviving ice ages and continental drift, volcanic eruptions and meteor impacts. Part 4. Biology and Adaptations. To truly appreciate the platypus, we must examine the extraordinary biology that makes its life cycle possible. This is not merely a mammal with a duck's bill. This is a creature whose very anatomy challenges our understanding of what mammals can be. Fur and thermoregulation. The platypus possesses some of the densest fur in the animal kingdom, approximately 600 hairs per square millimetre, comparable to the sea otter. This fur is two-layered, long guard hairs that repel water, and a dense underfur that traps air, providing insulation. This insulation is critical. Platypuses inhabit streams and rivers that, particularly in the highlands and during winter, can drop to near freezing temperatures. Without blubber, the insulation strategy of marine mammals, the platypus relies entirely on fur and metabolic heat generation. When diving, the trapped air creates a silvery sheen around the animal, a bubble of warmth that insulates against the cold water. Upon surfacing, vigorous grooming, using the hind feet to comb through the fur, expressing water and redistributing oils, maintains the fur's waterproof integrity. The bill. The bill deserves special attention, for it represents one of the most sophisticated sensory systems in the natural world. Covered in soft leathery skin, the bill contains two types of receptors: mechanoreceptors, which detect touch and pressure, and electroreceptors, which detect electrical fields. The 40,000 electroreceptors are arranged in rostrocaudal stripes along the bill. They are so sensitive they can detect electrical fields as small as 1/1000th of a volt per centimetre. the field generated by the muscle contractions of a shrimp several centimeters away. But detection alone is insufficient. The platypus must also determine direction and distance. It accomplishes this through a remarkable computational trick. By integrating the timing difference between the electrical signal, which arrives instantly, and the mechanical pressure waves generated by the prey's movement, which travel much slower through water, the platypus's brain calculates the location of the prey in three-dimensional space. This is active electrolocation, moving the bill in sweeping motions, collecting data, constructing a neural map of the environment. It allows the platypus to hunt successfully in water, too murky for vision, too sediment-laden for echolocation. It is a sense we humans do not possess and can barely imagine. Venom. The male platypus's venomous spur is unique among mammals. While some shrews and the slow loris possess toxic saliva, the platypus is the only mammal with a true venom delivery system, a spur connected to a venom gland, capable of envenomation through puncture. The venom contains multiple proteins, including defensins, also found in the immune system, and nerve growth factors. The effect on humans is immediate, intense pain localized around the wound but radiating up the limb, accompanied by swelling and hypersensitivity that can persist for weeks. Interestingly, females also possess spurs as juveniles, but these are shed before reaching adulthood. Only in males do the spurs become connected to functional venom glands, reinforcing the theory that the primary function is male competition during breeding season rather than predator defense. Metabolism and digestive oddities. The platypus has no stomach. Food passes from the esophagus directly into the intestine where digestion occurs. This is highly unusual for a carnivorous mammal and may be an ancestral trait retained from early mammalian evolution. The metabolic rate is high, necessary for thermoregulation in cold water, but the platypus compensates by being an efficient forager and by entering periods of reduced activity during the day when resting. The kidneys are also noteworthy. Platypuses can concentrate urine more efficiently than most mammals, an important adaptation for an animal that spends much of its time submerged and must carefully balance water and electrolyte levels. Part 5. Ecosystem Role. The platypus occupies a critical niche in Australian freshwater ecosystems, one that is easy to overlook precisely because the animal itself is so secretive. As a predator of benthic invertebrates, creatures that live on or in the stream bed, the platypus exerts top-down control on these populations. By consuming insect larvae, crustaceans, and worms, it prevents any single species from dominating and promotes diversity. This predation also influences nutrient cycling. Invertebrates consume detritus, decaying plant matter, algae, bacteria, and convert it into biomass. The platypus, in turn, converts invertebrate biomass into platypus biomass, transferring energy up the food chain and, through its waste products, redistributing nutrients throughout the aquatic system. Platypus burrows, particularly the extensive breeding burrows, aerate the soil, create habitat complexity, and, when abandoned, provide shelter for fish, turtles, and other aquatic vertebrates. The presence of platypuses also serves as an indicator of stream health. They require clean water, adequate invertebrate populations, and stable banks for burrowing. Where platypuses thrive, we can infer a relatively undisturbed, functioning ecosystem. But the relationship goes both ways. The platypus is vulnerable to changes in water quality, flow regimes, and habitat structure. It is, in this sense, a sentinel species, Its decline warns of broader ecosystem degradation. Part 6. Human Connection and Conservation. The relationship between humans and platypuses has always been complex. To indigenous Australians, the platypus has been known for tens of thousands of years, woven into stories, respected as part of the living landscape. Different Aboriginal groups have different names and stories, but a common thread is recognition of the platypus's uniqueness, its connection to water and creation. European colonizers, by contrast, approached the platypus with skepticism and commercial interest. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, platypuses were hunted extensively for their dense, waterproof fur. Thousands were killed, their pelts exported to Europe and America. Only when populations visibly declined did protective legislation emerge. By the mid-20th century, hunting had ceased, but new threats emerged. Habitat destruction, land clearing for agriculture, urbanization, dam construction, fragmented populations as degraded water quality. Introduced species, foxes, cats, dogs, preyed on platypuses or competed for resources. Fishing gear, nets, lines, traps, drowned platypuses or maimed them. Today, the platypus is classified as near threatened on the IUCN Red List, an upgrade from least concern, driven by mounting evidence of population declines. Some regional populations have disappeared entirely. Others persist in fragments, isolated by dams, weirs, and urban development. Climate change presents an emerging threat. Droughts are becoming more frequent and severe, drying streams and eliminating habitat. Extreme weather events, floods, bushfires, disrupt breeding cycles and destroy burrows. Temperature increases affect prey availability and may stress the platypus's thermoregulatory capacities. But there is hope. Conservation efforts are underway across Australia. Organisations monitor populations, restore riparian habitats, remove in-stream barriers that fragment populations, and work with landowners to protect platypus habitats on private property. Community science plays a growing role. Platforms like the Australian Platypus Conservancy's reporting system allow citizens to contribute sightings, helping researchers track distribution and abundance. Education programs raise awareness, particularly among landowners whose properties include platypus habitat. Captive breeding has proven challenging. Platypuses are notoriously difficult to maintain in captivity, and only a few institutions worldwide have successfully bred them. But research continues, motivated by the need for insurance populations and genetic diversity preservation. Perhaps most promising is the growing recognition that platypus conservation is inseparable from freshwater ecosystem conservation. Protecting platypuses means protecting clean water, natural flow regimes, riparian vegetation, and invertebrate diversity, goals that benefit countless other species and provide clean water for human communities. Part 7. Closing Reflection. It is late summer now, and the young platypus from our opening scene has survived its first year. It has learned to hunt, to evade predators, to navigate the complex geography of its stream. It has established a small home range, excavated its first resting burrow, groomed its dense fur through countless cycles of submersion and surfacing. In another year, if fortune holds, it may breed, may excavate a breeding burrow in the same bank where it was born, may lay eggs and nurse puggles in the ancient mammalian way that predates nipples and placentas, that stretches back to the dawn of our lineage. But tonight, it is simply hunting, sweeping its bill through the sediment, sensing the tiny electrical signatures of hidden prey, grinding crayfish and larvae between horny plates, converting the stream's invertebrate abundance into the fuel that will carry it through another day. Watching a platypus, if you're lucky enough to witness one in the wild, is to glimpse deep time. This creature has persisted, largely unchanged, for millions of years. It survived the extinction events that eliminated countless other lineages. It endured ice ages and warmings, the breakup of supercontinents, the rise and fall of inland seas. And yet, it is not invulnerable. The platypus faces a future shaped by human choices about land use, water management, climate action, habitat protection. Whether the platypus endures another million years, or vanishes within our own lifetimes, depends on whether we recognize that some things, once lost, are irreplaceable. The platypus defies category, but it does not defy extinction. It is strange, improbable, and extraordinary. And precisely because it is all these things, it reminds us that the world is far more complex, more wonderful, more worthy of protection than we often acknowledge. In the darkness of an Australian stream, beneath the overhanging roots where eggs once incubated, a young platypus dives. It closes its eyes, seals its ears, and navigates by senses we barely understand. It is alone, but it is part of an unbroken chain of life that stretches back to when mammals were just beginning to explore the possibilities of fur and warm blood. And for now, at least, the chain holds, the platypus endures. If you enjoyed this episode of Animal Uncovered, following the podcast is the best way to support the show. And if there's an animal you want us to uncover next, leave a review or comment and let us know. Until next time.